It is a dramatic international custody battle that has reached the highest levels of the Brazilian legal system and U.S. diplomacy. Through it all, a New Jersey man continues his 5-year effort to get his son back. It looked like the picture-perfect romance. David Goldman was an American model working in Milan. Bruna was a Brazilian-born fashion design student. They fell in love, got married, had a son, Sean, and settled in suburban New Jersey. But in 2004, their international love affair turned into a diplomatic tug-of-war when Bruna took their 4-year-old son to Brazil.
I drove her and her mom and her father to the airport with my son. And love, hugs, and kisses, and, you know, have a nice trip, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
But Bruna never returned with their son. Instead, she filed for divorce, remarried, and died tragically last year, giving birth to a daughter. Meanwhile, Sean has remained in Brazil, attending private school and living in a sprawling home with his half-sister and stepfather.
Bring Sean home!
Sean's American family has been waging a battle to get him back ever since.
He and Sean were the closest father and son you could ever imagine.
Goldman says until last month, the courts and his former wife's family blocked his efforts to visit, a point hotly contested by the boy's Brazilian relatives. Back in the United States, President Obama, the House of Representatives, and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have all backed Goldman's efforts to regain custody of his son. For now, a heartbroken father awaits the return of his son to a bedroom left exactly the way it was 5 years ago.
Now I can just reinforce it by looking him in the eye every time I see him and telling him that I love him.
Joining us are Sean's maternal grandmother, Silvana Bianchi, his stepfather, Raul Polo Lins de Silva, and family attorney Sergio Tostes. They flew in from Brazil for this exclusive interview. We thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Sure. I want to go back 5 years. You were with your daughter and this boy as you left the United States to go to Brazil. The father says he thought was only for a vacation. Was there trouble then in the marriage?
Yes. Bruna was not happy in the marriage. She had to work too much. She had no time to stay with the baby. She had to work to support the family. And she was very lonely. No love in this marriage. They used to fight a lot. And they slept in separate rooms.
Mm. Had she talked with him about getting divorced?
She talked when she got in Brazil after, because she tried many times to fix the marriage. They even went to the therapist, but she was not successful to fix the marriage. And so she was very, very stressed when she went to Brazil for vacations, and then she decided to stay.
You go to Brazil, you start to establish a new life there. Did the boy's father, was he in contact with Sean?
Sometimes at the beginning he used to call him, and but after the calls came very less calls. He used to send cards for Sean too, in Valentine's Day and birthday.
But that's all?
That's all. He never went to Brazil. He never went to Brazil to visit the boy. He never asked to the judge permission to go to Brazil to visit the boy.
Because that family says, the Goldman family says, well, you've made it very difficult. You made it very difficult for him to see his son.
No, the only thing that he had to do was ask the permission for the judge to see the boy. And we never forbidden that.
Right. Your daughter subsequently then remarries, tragically dies in giving birth to your daughter. Do you love this boy? Do you love Sean?
Harry, I love Sean the same as a real son. There's no difference between Sean and Kiara, my daughter. They both are my sons, and they're my family.
They're your family?
Sure.
Why do you want to keep this boy in Brazil? Should his father not have some rights?
Sean has spent 60% of his whole life in Brazil. This is a place he feels safe, protected, loved. It's where his family he loves lives. His daughter lives. It's the place he wants to stay. He asks me every time why he has to pass for the situation, and because he wants to stay in Brazil. He asks me every time about this. I want to stay in Brazil with my father, Tue Jun, and my daughter and my family.
Right.
I have to respect his feelings, what he wants.
It's also the only thing he really may be aware of.
Sure.
Most of his life has been spent with you. He doesn't.
Sure.
He doesn't really know of the life before.
When he was born here, 9 years ago, the first moment he was a baby, and babies usually doesn't have a memory.
Sure.
So he spent 60% of his whole life together with me and Bruna, and in a lovely family. Now with his sister close, he feels protected there, loved there.
Safe.
Safe.
Mr. Tosas, let me ask you this.
Sure.
There's a very well-established agreement among many nations in the world, the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of Child Abduction, which basically says if a marriage should fall apart, it needs to be adjudicated in the country in which it was legally constructed. Shouldn't this law apply in this case? Because clearly they had marital problems before they left. Bruna leaves with the child. This is a situation that is absolutely applicable to this convention. Do you not agree?
I agree. And Mr. Goldman fought under the Hague Convention in Brazil against Bruna, and he went all the way to Supreme Court and lost the case in all instances. So the question regarding kidnapping has already been established by the Brazilian court system.
By the Brazilian court.
Yes. And this is final. So there has been no kidnapping whatsoever. First, according with the fact, there was no kidnapping. And those facts taken to the Brazilian court found that there was no kidnapping whatsoever.
So you will continue to fight, Mr. Goldman, to make sure that Sean stays in Brazil?
Oh, certainly. What they are claiming now is that after Bruna's death, the question of kidnapping erased again. Such as, after her death, the whole thing had been discussed before, should be erased. And the whole thing would start again from Bruna's death. But that's not what the Hague Convention says.
Right.
The Hague Convention says the place of residence.
But where the marriage took place, not where the divorce takes place. We don't really have time to untie this Gordian knot of legal decisions. Do you think Sean's father has any rights to him? Should he be able to see him? Should he be able to bring him back to the United States?
He has the rights to visit the baby, of course, now a boy. Of course, many times, how many times he wants to go, he can go to Brazil to visit his son, no problems.
But you don't want him to bring him back to the United States?
He wants to stay in Brazil. Sean wants to stay in Brazil with the family, with us, and it's very hard for him separate from his sister.
Every custody case is very, very difficult. Yeah. This one may be the most difficult of all. We thank you for coming here and sharing your side of the story.
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciate it. All right.